Right, hi, here we are with a lovely pink and green wellie. It doesn't look anything like a bird at the moment, but I'm going to talk you through what I did when I made the owl at Compton Verney. Now the bottom of the wellie is going to become the body of the owl, and the top part with his head is going to need some nice eyes. This is the main part of his body. So in order to create some wings, I'm going to cut the wellie all the way down the back and then also down the front to about, I think, halfway down the front, just to see what happens. Now some wellies are extremely easy to cut. Others are a bit more tricky, but as long as you've got some fairly sharp scissors, it should be okay. So usually you can get quite easily to the bottom. If you stop being able to cut because your scissors won't go forward any further, then it's a good idea to rock it. Right, I've cut down the back of this wellie. It's got a lovely stripey inside this one. Might be useful actually. And now I'm just going to cut down the front of this wellie. Keep it in close to the middle as I can. It's usually quite easy to find the middle because you'll see the way the wellie's been moulded. And I'm going to go, for this one, I'm going to go pretty near the toe just to see how the wings fan out. You can see already, looks like a nice pair of wings. So if I now turn this wellie over this way, you can now see how that could become an owl. And if you suspended him like I did in the park, by the tips of his wings, it looks as though he's swooping down. So already we've got what could easily become a bird. And to be honest, there's not much you need to do with the sides of these of the wellie, because these are pretty good wing shape. But if you wanted to create an owl, I would probably curve the end round a bit. So I think I would probably curve this, just take that corner off and take it up to the tip. And you can keep this bit because sometimes you find that that's useful for something else. So we can have a look and see if we think that that looks like an owl shape yet. One of the things that might make it look more like an owl is to take a little bit of a dip out of the wing at the side here, and I'll show you what that does. Here we are. Now I have actually made a cut just in the corner there, but I haven't cut anything off, because what you'll find is that because of the way the wellie's been moulded, it will probably bend itself in. I just wanted to show you that if you take an extra bit out the corner, it looks even more like a bird's wing shape, but particularly an owl. So for now, I would just leave that little bit there because it will fold itself in. Let me just show you. There you can see, I just cut it there just to create a bit more of a wing shape. And if you want, you could try and create a tail from the toe. With the one at Compton Verney, I cut around the toe of the boot in order to flap the bit of the toe down to create a tail. But I would say that was quite difficult because the wellie wants to fold itself back the other way. So it might actually be easier for you to take a piece that you've cut off, maybe that corner that I had, and maybe just fix it to make a tail. You might be lucky and it might be the right sort of shape already. I'm not too sure if this one is, but you could create a tail just by attaching it to the back of the wellie. And in a bit I'm going to show you how to paint it. But the best way to fix things onto the wellie, if you're going into the boot itself, is to just get someone to maybe help you, but just to screw a little screw in. Or you could even push a drawing pin, a thumbtack. You can use duct tape to strap things on, but if they're outside for a long time, then duct tape tends to peel off a little bit, so it's better if you can use something that will stay there properly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut the other wing, and I might create a bit of a tail, and then I'm going to come back to you with the painting stage, which is the fun bit. Our just wanted to quickly show you what I meant about flapping the tail down. Here's the wellie toe, and here's obviously the boot that we've cut. And I haven't taken anything off that part at all yet. When I cut the wings, you'll see that I cut the corner piece, and what I've now done is I've put a cut down the centre as far as I could go to the toe before the scissors stopped working. And that particular piece now, I could flap back to create the tail, because you can see that we're going to be viewing the owl from this side, so it doesn't really matter what's on the back. Although I do rather like the stripy effect. Maybe we could have had a stripy bird. I'm just wondering now whether it actually looks better that way. Sometimes when you're creating things, you see new possibilities, and you sometimes change tack. I've done that a few times. But since we're doing a tutorial, I better stick with my owl. So this bit on the back that I was telling you about could be bent down to be his tail, and that will look quite nice. But in order to fix it, what I'd probably do, because you need to try and get it to stick round that way, I'd probably use a cable tie, because that would go all the way around the back and fix it in place, and that would then give the bird a nice tail. So I'll do that before I do the painting stage, and then we can do the painting all at once. Here we've got our owl, and he's sitting there quite nicely. I have to squash him down a bit to get his wings to flap out. And as I said I would, I've cable tied that bit of the boot around to make his tail, and that bit's just going to flap out the bottom. It's not quite the right shape, but it will give the right effect. Now, from one of the earlier videos, you might remember that we talked about distinguishing features. And one of the distinguishing features of the owl is, of course, his eyes, his big feathery eyes. Now, on the owl at Compton Verney, I managed to recycle a couple of little pieces that I'd got, which I think was fixing the back of a clock into a box when I bought it. I never throw out anything. I always keep all sorts of little fixings, and those are going to make some nice eyes on my owl. I'm going to screw them on in a minute. But you could use maybe a milk bottle tops. A couple of those would look nice. If you get somebody to help you, just put a little hole in them. They're quite easy to make a hole into, and then you can screw those in. They would be good eyes. Or maybe even a washer. A couple of washers would look good. Put a screw through those and they would make two lovely eyes. Just see whatever you can find. There's lots of things, lots of lids and things that would make good eyes. So here's our owl with his eyes in place. I just screwed them in. It was very easy to do because he's nice and rubbery, so it's easy to get them in. And in order to get him a little bit flatter for us to paint, I have actually made a little extra cut on the back of the top of the wing there, just along the boot, and that helps him to lie flat. And you could even cut that little corner off just to smooth his wings out, but that will let him lie flat when you're doing the painting. Hi again. Right, we've got to the exciting stage now, which is the painting. Very exciting. Now, all you need is a palette, and I like to use a yogurt pot lid. The reason being, I'm a little bit lazy. When I've finished, and I'm not going to use any more of the paint, I just let it dry, and then I just pop it in the recycling just as it is, and then I don't have to clean it. So that's handy. And then we need some paint, and the best paint to use for wellies is acrylic paint. So if you can get your hands on some quite cheap acrylic, not the really expensive artist stuff, just some of the cheaper stuff. You can buy these in most craft shops. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get it in the supermarket, which is good. So I'm going to use for the owl. Now you can do any colours you like, really, because you can just be creative. We don't have to make it exactly the right colours for an owl. He's got his wings and he's got his big eyes. So, you know, it doesn't really matter what colour he comes in now. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'll show you what I would do. Now, I like to use, my favourite brushes are square brushes, big square ones, because you can have a nice, big, wide stroke with that side. and then if you want a thin bit you can go that way round, but it's up to you. So I've put out some colours, and here's one I've prepared earlier. I've always wanted to say that. And I've put on quite a bit of white. I found some brown, so I've put some brown on, and then I've added a bit of blue and orange and black. And I think I'm just going to have a bit of fun with those colours. Now, you can do anything you like, and you can maybe look up for a picture of an owl to see what they look like and what the feathers are like. I will show you what I would do, but of course you can do whatever you like because it doesn't really matter. But the acrylic paint goes really nicely onto the wellie boot, and if you let it dry, you can come back to it again the next day and do a bit more and add it up in layers, and it should stay quite nicely. Now I think I'm quite a messy painter, so I quite like just sort of mixing around on my palette. And in fact, the best thing to do is just not use any water at all. Just keep adding colour, and you might get some nice textures appear because of the way you mix your colours. So I'd probably start with a bit of white and a bit of brown, and I'd probably just start getting a bit of colour on him, just flapping it on, maybe a bit of white. And the thing is, you can mix it as you go, and it kind of creates a lot of texture if you create several colours at once. And I would just keep going, get some colour down, and it's a good idea if you follow the line that the feathers would be lying in when you're putting your paint down, because that will give a nice feathery effect. I mean, this owl's going to have pink on the tips of his wings. I think even if I put a lot of paint on, they're not really going to be covered up completely. And you'll find that it might be a little bit see-through to start, but that's okay because you can just add a bit more later. Now, if you do look at owls, you'll realise that their feathers are in layers. In fact, I think most birds probably are. But on an owl particularly, they do have, most of them have little dark layers, almost like dotted lines. I'll see if I can give you an example. If I put a slightly darker colour on and then sort of dot it again, you'll see it kind of gives that effect. And on the end, if I pull him along a bit, I should be able to show you. I don't think you can see that bit on this side of the camera. There we go. The feathers on the end of his wings go out towards the pointy bit in that direction. So they do slightly change direction on the end of his wings. So the ones coming from the top, they go downwards like that. You can't really see very well with this colour because he's going on a similar colour in the background. I might need to get you some lighter paint just to make it a bit more obvious. But the feathers at the top, they go downwards, and the ones at the end, they go out towards the tips of the wings. But to be honest, you can just do whatever you like. I think I'll do a bit on his body, and you can have fun. You can even get a bit of texture. You'll see that the wellie boot grip has got some wiggles on it, and that's going to give a nice kind of owl-like feathery texture. And when you come to doing his eyes, I would probably, to make them stand out, I think I would choose the white and try and put the white in the middle. This isn't a very good white because it's a bit watery. So I think I'm going to have to find another white. That was the end of a tube, but I might be able to find another one that we can use to get a bit more texture than that. It doesn't show up very well on the camera. Anyway, just keep painting away, have fun. It's lovely and smooth painting on a wellie, so you should have a lovely time just brushing on the paint. And then go away, it dries quite quickly. Go away and then come back again and add another layer just to build it up, to give that texture. And you should have a lovely time making your owl. So I think I'll let mine dry after I put this layer on, and then I'll come back tomorrow to do the finishing touches for the final bit of the video. Hi everyone, I'm just finishing off the owl. I came back a day later when the original coat had dried really nicely, and it did mean that when I put the paint back on the second time, it really showed up, and I just went back over the top of my feathers and just added a bit more colour, which gave a lot more definition. And when I did a very quick stroke on the front of the owl's tummy, I found that the grip on the base of the boot gave a lovely feathery effect by just brushing the white very, very loosely over the top. You can see that the grip comes through and looks quite nice and feathery. And then I added a bit of colour, a bit of texture to the tail. So I just wanted to show you how I was going to finish off the owl. Now, I think I mentioned in the last video that I was thinking about cutting off the little corners of the wings here because they were sticking up a bit. So I have done that and taken these pieces off. And if you like, you could use a little screw, or maybe if you've got a nice long drawing pin, you could put a pin through those and pin them onto the side of his head, and they would make some nice little kind of feathery ear bits. But that's up to you to decide. So I just wanted to show you the very last thing that I did on the owl that I put in at Compton Verney, which was to give him a couple of legs as if he was swooping down about to land on the ground or on his prey. So all I used for those were pipe cleaners, a couple of brown pipe cleaners, any colour would do. And I folded them nearly in half. I left slightly longer end on one end, and that was so I could bend it round to make a little claw and have sort of 3 little bits to his claw and maybe one round the back. You can take a bit more time and make it look a bit better. Then I twisted that round, and that left a little loop on the other end, and through that loop I actually screwed it on, but I think a drawing pin would do. So if I twist that round and get my drawing pin through that loop, I should be able to just pop that leg onto the boot. And then you can position your leg however you like, really, but it looked quite good if it's bent slightly, because then it would look as if it was about to swoop down and land. You can play around with the leg positions. But there he is. He's pretty much finished now, and all that's left to do is really work out how you're going to hang him. Now, if you're lucky like me, this wellie boot actually had a couple of loops. Well, it had one loop on the back to help you pull it up when you put it on, and I've actually halved that when I cut it down the back. So I'm lucky, because all I need to do this time is put a cable tie through the ends and then suspend him from a tree so he looks like he's swooping down. But if you haven't got loops like that, then just make a little hole and get someone to help you put a piece of string or a cable tie through, and then find a suitable branch to suspend him from. And then everybody passing by will get a surprise when they see him in the trees.